Okay, it's my great pleasure to talk about this important and yet little agreed upon issue, the relation between technology and equality. The battle against inequality has become a global theme, but to do that in the right way, we have to understand the basic facts and the logic. So if we look at historically, uneven technology penetration could lead to income inequality. In this graph, you can see the horizontal axis was the uh, uh, daily income, and the vertical is the population. So, regardless in 1800, at that time, regardless of different countries with different population, but you can see that kind of the income is kind of somehow even. But then in 1985, 75, you can see that many countries have moved to the right hand. Oh, the vertical axis actually is the poverty line. So back in 1800, a lot of people lived beneath the poverty line. But then in 1975, many more people have moved above the poverty line, and thanks to the Industrial Revolution. Now, so I guess here what we can see is that during the penetration of technology, the lack of opportunity and existence of systematic barrier to technology diffusion are some major culprits for the inequality. The lesson here, though, is that the income divergence accompanying the technology revolutions represents both economic progress as well as challenges to mitigate the transitional pains. So inequality, as many of the previous speakers already discussed, is a dynamic part of economic progress between short-term and long-term. Now, but is there anything special about this round of the technology, the digital technology? So what do we know about the relationship between digital technology and inequality so far? Let's show some evidence. The first thing we notice is that digital technology has this unprecedented speed and scope of penetration. As you can see from the left graph, that it took several decades, many decades, for electricity, telephone, car, dishwasher, air conditioning to have a high kind of a penetration. But then it took the mobile phone only years to do that. Now, on the right graph, we can see that this, excluding the very low income, then the relation between the mobile subscription and the GDP per capita is kind of vague. So the penetration of the digital technology is not necessarily related to the income levels, and this is very special compared to the previous technological revolutions. Now, another thing is that there's no clear relation between the rise of digitization, AI, and unemployment. On the left-hand panel, starting from the 1990s and in the kind of digital era up to now, even though the world population is increasing, the unemployment rate is kind of steady globally. And on the right panel, there's some countries very higher robot penetration, but some countries have lower, but there's very little relation with the unemployment rate. So probably as David Otter has mentioned, that there's a lot of augmenting new jobs are coming up. So and anyways, so unemployment rate is not going up yet. And if you look at China, and as many of you know that China has experienced rapid growth of digitization. But as you can see that China's Gini coefficient is kind of stable after the financial crisis, and even dropped a little bit. And in the meantime, the mobile penetration is really going up. And on the right graph, it shows very similar pattern. The ICT sector growth has very little relation between the Gini with the Gini coefficient. So, but of course, we have to acknowledge that digital technology has indeed created noticeable mobility and wealth for those who could take advantage of the digital technology in the first place. But overall, I believe from what I can gather, there's very little evidence suggesting that this is to the scale that it becomes a major driver of inequality in more digitized countries. And but we have to acknowledge that some people who can take advantage of technology first, they will benefit faster than some others. As the previous technology, it represents both a progress and an issue to address. I guess the goal then is to have the more inclusive digital dividends. So let me talk about this this part of this. So because of the more inclusive nature of digital technology, my argument here is that it can be a major driver of equality. And here that we would like to have equality of both opportunities and equality of the outcome, as some of you previously discussed. And I think probably it's important to start with the equality of the opportunities. And there's a lot of public policies wants to push for that. And I think digital technology can play a major role here. So especially from what we observe from practice, digital technology powered business innovations can have major impacts on equality. So let me give you some of the examples. And the first example is the digitized marketplace. It's really a wonderful thing that breaks the traditional boundary of the space and time, that really makes the market become so much bigger. It can reach so many people who could never have the chance to get access. Those are from the consumers as well as from a small business. As we know that traditionally, small business can only serve people maybe within 10 kilometers, but now you can see the average distance between the buyers and sellers on Taobao and Tmall is actually around 1,200 kilometers. Last time when I was sketched this, actually it was around a little bit less than 1,000 kilometers. So you can see that actually the distance is still expanding in the past several years. On the right panel, you can see that there's actually is in the province, in the regions that the poorer, the regions with lower per capita GDP, the consumers buy higher varieties, and that is not surprising. People in the less developed regions, they do not have very good supermarkets, and so they can actually buy a lot of things through the e-commerce to satisfy their needs. And so that is the inclusive, and let's say it's the more equality part of the availability. And to continue, and we can see that it is really a great opportunity for the entrepreneurs. As Mike Spence just mentioned, there's a spur of the entrepreneurship, and especially for the disadvantaged groups and the regions. On the left panel, you can see that it's the gender distribution of the entrepreneurs on Taobao. Now, on Taobao, we know that there's about 10 million companies and startups, and about half of them are women. And we're talking about entrepreneurs. We're not talking about employees. And so on the right panel, you can see that there's the Taobao village, as Eric just mentioned earlier, that now in the last year, there were 5,425 Taobao villages, and the trading over $1 trillion, which is about 145 billion US dollars. And it also demonstrates a powerful positive feedback loops between skills and training and the other infrastructure that for local development. Now, and this is another interesting for the small business. And if you look at on the right graph here, that is the distribution of the annual income by the education group. And of course, you can see that is the lower red graph represents the higher education. So the horizontal axis is the it's the income. As you can see that they do not converge quickly, so and they are more on the right-hand side. And the poorer, less educated group, they converge quickly on the left-hand side. So you can see the difference of the income. But then this is the amazing part on the distribution of sellers' annual GMV by education group, and they really converge. So really, e-commerce gives them a lot of opportunity for the small business, even for the ones that who are less educated. So it gives them really compensate for the lack of the education gap, to fill in the gap. You can see this clearly. And then we can see the second case is the inclusive finance. And so it's not just the accessibility, it's not just about the markets, and also because of the digitized information, now the consumers in the less developed regions, they actually have higher the penetration ratio than the more developed regions of the fintech loans. So they are really and that's thanks for the data, not because of collateral. So I'm going to cite the famous quote from the Ben Holmstrom, that data is the new collateral. And so that benefits people from less developed regions. That's for the consumers. And this is the fascinating picture. Look at this for the small business on the loans. On the left panel, oh my God. So on the left panel is the bank loans. You can see is that it goes up with the income, but on the right hand side is the small business loans. It goes down with the income because it really fill in the affordable technology, fill in the gap here. So the third one is the green transformation, and in my view, that green finance is the least inclusive part of finance, and you can see that. Nowadays, a lot of green finance is really top down, but you can see that for the green transformation, digital technology can do a lot of the stuff. And Craigslist has done a great job, but so is the idle fish in China. Now, this year's trading will exceed 500 billion yuan as GMV, and it's a second-hand goods, and so that is really. When 60% of the users are young people that really enjoy secondhand goods, this is a really good example of the circular economy, but without the digital technology to give every secondhand unique goods the digital identification, the trust system is not happening. And then the ant forest I've talked about before, it's another including interesting example. Since it started back in 2016, it has more than 600 million people subscribe to it. It has more than 300 million trees have been planted. That means several percent of the population are watching their green behavior and growing planting trees every day. So, and
Dr. Chen, I'm sorry, the time is up, so could you wrap it up? Thank you.
Let me conclude. So historically, technology brings about both economic progress and challenge to inequality. Due to its unprecedented speed and scope of penetration, digital technology by nature is more inclusive and can be used in such a way. So there is ample evidence that digital technology can lead to scalable inclusion, but much more can be done through the combination of digital technology and conscious and smart business and governance design. Thank you.